This is the Illinois Nutrient Loss Reduction Podcast, episode number 12, Cultivating Change in Conservation, the Illinois Farm Bureau's Perspective. I'm University of Illinois Extension's Todd Gleason. Lauren Lurkins, the Director of Natural and Environmental Resources at Illinois Farm Bureau, now joins us. I'm wondering, Lauren, if you can tell me a little bit about how the Farm Bureau has been involved in the process of implementing the nutrient loss reduction strategy in the state.
Absolutely. So our work at Illinois Farm Bureau on the nutrient loss reduction strategy focuses in four primary areas. The first is education and outreach, and we try to track our numbers to the best of our abilities, which is difficult with being the state's largest farm organization. But as of the end of 2018, we believe that we have reached over 42,000 individuals, and that's through a combination of face-to-face conversations, presentations, conferences, and even a couple webinars in the process. We are able to utilize our existing structure of county farm bureaus, both the leadership of farmers at that county level and our staff to be able to execute that level of outreach. Our second priority is that we support research initiatives. So at Farm Bureau, we work with researchers at all of our state universities that are working on this issue to be able to, at a bare minimum, tell our farmers what the research is that's happening and what they're finding. But sometimes those researchers need places to look at these practices. So we partner with the researchers and the farmers to find locations across the state, and we come up with a lot of very good partnerships across the state to be able to implement that research. Our third area of prioritization is really supporting implementation efforts, and that's where the bulk of this $750,000 in commitments has gone. One of the things that we're most proud of is a grant program focused on this issue to our county farm bureaus. So we have locally led initiatives that come from our grassroots all the way up, and we just help fund them a little more than what the counties would be able to do on their own. And over the course of almost 4 years now, we're entering our fourth year of grant programs. We've installed saturated buffers, we've installed wood chip bioreactors, done tons of work on cover crops, and even looked at different database and technology-driven information for our farmers. So it's all farmer ideas that we just put a little bit of resources behind. And then finally, our fourth priority is demonstrating progress. So we know as the state's largest farm organization that we have to, tell several different audiences what our farmers in the state of Illinois are doing on this topic. So we spend a lot of time reporting these metrics back to our state agencies, the Illinois Department of Ag and Illinois EPA. We also take that message to U.S. EPA, both the headquarters in D.C. as well as the regional office in Chicago. And we spend time talking to the general public. And all of this work is still continuing as we enter into 2019.
Speaking of that work, Lauren, Michael Ganshaw now joins us. He's a Bureau County farmer, that's in the northern part of the state, and used some of these funds to have a wood chip bioreactor installed on his farm last fall. Michael, thanks for being with us. Can you tell me about this installation?
I had the opportunity to install a bioreactor here in August of 2018, and really, for me, one of the biggest reasons why we decided to install the bioreactor is the more that I've learned about this nutrient loss reduction strategy, I've come to the conclusion that it's really not gonna it's gonna take a multiple practice approach to really help solve this problem long term. And there's a lot of good avenues to help prevent nutrient loss, but if you want to talk about taking what the environment gives you and trying to react to it, installing something like a bioreactor really helps you do some of that, because a lot of the practices that we have, they're really good practices, but they're really dependent on what happens afterwards as far as the weather is concerned. So if you have an ability to install what I call a filtration device on your tile system, that really enables you to take what the weather gives you, and no matter what you do, to a degree, you're controlling that water flow coming out of your tile system and cleaning it before it gets to the water system. So that for me was one of the biggest reasons that I did it, and the Illinois Farm Bureau really stepped up and helped me accomplish that goal and getting it installed. So.
A good ways to the south of you, Michael, in Moultrie County, Clint Robinson has also used some of those funds. His farms lay up against Lake Shelbyville, and he's been concerned about some of the nutrients that might run off into that very valuable recreation and game lake, and has installed some saturated buffers. He's now here as well. Clint, thanks for being with us. Tell me about some of the things that are site-specific for your installation.
Well, obviously, the first thing, it's a tile system. So, and most likely, people already have a 1026 done through their NRCS office. Like my tile system was done before 1026 was even really worried about too much. So I didn't have one of those on my field, and that basically is a wetland determination that NRCS does. If it is a wetland, you cannot have tile in it. So before we could move forward, we had to have a 1026 done, and those kind of take, maybe up to 3 to 6 months, depending on how the workload is at the state offices of NRCS. So that's one of the things we had to do. And then secondly, it does take up some space. They prefer longer runs. So you need about 500 to 1,000 feet, depending on your tile system and flow, in order to run your saturated line out so that you've got enough space to handle the volume of water and treat it with your cover crops or your grasses or whatever's taking the nutrients out of that water.
Clint, and I suppose you too, Michael, why did you both decide to get involved?
I guess the biggest thing, there's a lot of new technology out there to evaluate our nutrient loss and our nutrient contribution to water. So there's a lot of different things, bioreactors and saturated buffers and wetlands, and I think the saturated buffer especially is one that I know NRCS is very interested in studying. Carbondale's interested in studying. We don't have a lot of data on it yet to see maybe how successful it's going to be, but that's kind of the point of getting this one put in and using those tools to figure out what we can do to reduce our nutrient load on our streams and lakes and all that. So I guess stay tuned, do some research, find some people to partner with, and see what you can make work on your farm. Because if there's one thing we've learned, not everything works on every field or every farm or for every farmer. So it's one of those things that you need to talk to people that have done it, and then see if you've got the right location for that saturated buffer to go in.
The only thing that I would say is that, if you're thinking about it, don't get worried about some of the things that I worried about as far as ruining your drainage or having a problem with backing up in the field, because they've done a lot of research on these things, and they're continuing to do more research on it. But they've worked a lot of the bugs out that can potentially be worrisome for farmers to do this. And just like anything else, I always tell guys that if they're looking at trying something, go ahead and try it. And if it doesn't work out, try to continue to work hard at making it work. Because if you really are committed to a practice and trying to make it work on your farm, you'll find a way to do it. So trial and error is a lot of this job. So.
Indeed it is, and it doesn't hurt that the Illinois Farm Bureau has been there with a little funding, and there's some science that's really backing this up from places like the University of Illinois, the other universities in the state. Laura Lurkin, since 2015, do you think the Farm Bureau and the state has been very successful at changing the minds of producers across the state as it relates to nutrient loss?
It's pretty amazing when I, as the staff person working on an issue, read something that's not one of our publications or talk to a farmer in passing out in the countryside, and they're telling me about this effort called the Nutrient Loss Reduction Strategy, or telling me about science coming out of the University of Illinois that can help them make better decisions. And so that's when I know that all of this is working. It's still it's an exercise in incremental progress for sure, but we sure are moving right along that spectrum.
That's Laura Lurkin. She's the Director of Natural and Environmental Resources for the Illinois Farm Bureau. We were joined on this podcast as well by Michael Ganshelm, a Bureau County farmer, and Clint Robinson, a Moultrie County farmer in the state of Illinois. If you're a farmer or a landowner that's interested in learning more about the NLRS or the Nutrient Loss Reduction Strategy, you can contact your local Farm Bureau, the Soil and Water Conservation District, or the University of Illinois Extension Watershed Outreach Associates. They're Haley Haverback and Jennifer Woodyard. You can find their contact information online on the University of Illinois Extension page. That's at extension.illinois.edu. Look under the Environmental and Energy Stewardship Team. For Illinois Extension, I'm Todd Gleason.